Madam President.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, last year, Chairman Pai of the Federal Communications Commission threatened to take a weed whacker to the FCC's net neutrality rules. And on December 14th, last week, Chairman Pai and the FCC are likely to make good on that promise. So last week, they issued their plan. They're quite proud of it. Chairman Pai is very proud of their plan. And so they got that done last week. And then on December 14th, they are going to execute their plan to execute the net neutrality rules of our country. Net neutrality applies the principles of non-discrimination to the internet world, ensuring that broadband providers, America's internet gatekeepers, do not block or slow down or prioritize internet traffic. In 2015, the FCC correctly adopted the Open Internet Order, enshrining these net neutrality principles into law. But now, net neutrality and the free and open internet, this diverse, dynamic, democratic platform, are under attack. Here's what Chairman Pai is proposing. Number one, he would gut the rule against blocking. So what does that mean? Well, it means that an internet service provider could block any website it wants, could block something just because it decided to. That includes a website of a competing service or a website with a contrary political view. Whatever they want, they can block. The biggest companies, Comcast, AT&T, they can just block it. Number two, Chairman Pai would gut the rule against throttling. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that the internet service provider could slow down any website it wants. Number three, Chairman Pai would gut the rule banning paid prioritization. So what does that mean in easy-to-understand language? Well, that means that the internet service provider could charge websites for an internet fast lane, meaning those websites would load quicker, while websites that can't afford the internet easy pass would be stuck on a gravel path, taking more time to load and frustrating consumers with long buffering times. Number four, Chairman Pai would gut the forward-looking general conduct rule. So what does that mean in easy-to-understand language? Well, that means that whatever discriminatory conduct ISPs think of next in the coming months or years would be perfectly legal. Number five, Chairman Pai would create an unregulated interconnection market. What does that mean, an unregulated interconnection market? Well, in plain English, it means the Federal Communications Commission would lose authority to oversee places where the internet service providers connect to the internet and extract fees. Number six, Chairman Pai would prevent states and localities from adopting their own net neutrality protections. So if you live in Massachusetts, or you live in California, or you live in Alabama, your state can't give you any protections. They can't say, here's how we want the internet to be operating. So what will replace these enforceable net neutrality rules? Nothing. Chairman Pai will leave it to the internet service providers, to the big companies that we all subscribe to regulate themselves. We'll just put them on the honor system. But we know the broadband industry, your cable, your wireless, or telecommunications provider, cannot regulate themselves. They struggle to even show up on time to install a fixture service. Do we really trust the broadband industry to resist leveraging their internet gatekeeper role and putting their online competitors at an unfair disadvantage? Of course not. So what is Chairman Pai's silver lining in light of gutting all of these rules? He has proposed to keep some transparency rules, requiring the internet service providers, these broadband behemoths, to disclose their practices to consumers. But what good is transparency when most Americans have little or no choice for high-speed broadband access. After all, 62% of Americans have one choice for high-speed fixed broadband. If a household's only choice for high-speed broadband is transparent about its plans to set up internet fast and slow lanes, the consumer has two choices: accept the internet provider's terms or live without the internet. That is not a real choice at all. People are not going to be living without the internet in the 21st century. You're going to pay whatever that company tells you you're going to pay. And it's clear that most Americans do not want what the FCC is proposing. A record number of people, over 22 million, made their voices heard at the FCC. Americans know that the internet, the world's greatest platform for commerce and communications, is at stake. Consider that today, essentially every company is an internet company. In 2016, almost half of the venture capital funds invested in this country went towards internet-specific and software companies. That's $25 billion of investment. And to meet America's insatiable demand for broadband internet, U.S. broadband and telecommunications industry companies invested more than $87 billion of capital expenditures in 2015. That's the highest rate of annual investment in the last 10 years. We've hit the sweet spot. Investment in broadband and wireless technologies is high. Job creation is high. Venture capital investment in online startups is high. With these net neutrality protections in place, there is no problem that needs fixing. But under Chairman Pai's plan, broadband providers get exactly what they want: an unregulated Wild West where they can set up internet fast and slow lanes. Chairman Pai proposes to have the FCC completely abdicate its rightful role to oversee telecommunications networks under Title II of the Communications Act. Now, Chairman Pai claims that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, provides a sufficient backstop to discriminatory behavior by the big broadband companies. But that is simply not true. Under the Federal Trade Commission regime, the big broadband barons would establish their own net neutrality policies. And if the internet service provider wants to block websites, slow down the competitors' content, or charge innovators and entrepreneurs to reach their customers, they will be free to do so. That's because the Federal Trade Commission can only step in if a broadband provider violates its own net neutrality policies. But what if the internet service provider has a written policy that charges websites for internet fast lanes? There's nothing the Federal Trade Commission can do about it because the broadband baron told you what they're going to do. They were transparent about what they're going to do, but you just have no recourse whatsoever going to the Federal Trade Commission. So it's a false promise of protection that Chairman Pai is presenting. The only way to protect a free and open internet is with strong net neutrality rules of the road, not voluntary guidelines. Chairman Pai's proposal would put the future of a free and open internet in the hands of big corporations and the powerful few at the expense of ordinary consumers all across our country. Our consumers will be tipped upside down and have money shaken out of their pockets because they won't have the protection of net neutrality provisions that are now the law, but are soon to be wiped off of the law. And the Trump administration, well, it's waging an all-out assault on core protections: the Affordable Care Act, the Paris Climate Accord, the Clean Power Plan, and now Trump's Federal Communications Commission has net neutrality in their sights. For all of those who rely on the free and open internet, whether it's for commerce, education, healthcare, entertainment, I urge you all to rise up and create a firestorm of opposition to this assault on net neutrality. This goes to the fundamental principles of non-discrimination online. This is the greatest engine for commercial job development that our country has ever seen. It is the engine for new companies to be started. It is the way in which young people are able to disrupt established companies, to take new concepts that create jobs but also benefit consumers across our country. That's the opportunity that this represents, and it's also a powerful force for democracy, for everyone's voice being heard equally. That's what net neutrality is about. That's what the Trump, Chairman Pai, Federal Communications Commission is about to end. And that's why we must fight. And that's why I'm so proud to be standing as part of this effort with our great ranking member of the Commerce Committee, Senator Bill Nelson from the state of Florida, because this is a fight worth having. Madam President, I yield back the balance of my time.
Madam President.
Senator from Florida.
Madam President, you can't say it much better than the senator from Massachusetts has said it. Everyone has come to expect a free and open internet, one that does not charge more for certain content and charging less for favorite content. It's supposed to be free. It's supposed to be open. It should be balanced. Hopefully, since it seems that the Pai regime is in fact going down this road, there will be immediate lawsuits that will be very time-consuming. At the end of the day, somewhere in the future, there may be an opportunity for a legislative solution, but it has to be a balanced solution that protects the right of the public to a free and open internet. Madam President,